Friends, and welcome to my channel. I trust you're doing well. Today we'll be making this beautiful gown that was inspired by a style I saw on Pinterest. So without much ado, let's dive right into it. Please do not forget to like, subscribe and comment because you are going to find this video very helpful. And please turn on the bell notification so that you'll be the first to know every time I upload a new video. For this gown, you need about 3 yards of crepe fabric. Although I bandaged 2 yards, that was why I had 2 steps puff sleeves and my back was not very flare. When you are buying crepe, go for the one that has a soft texture. I made use of 1 yard of lining, a stay and ruche to spice up my dress. I already had my front and back pattern which I had cut out some time ago. I normally make use of the Natalie Brace pattern, so you can check it up on YouTube to be able to draft it. This pattern is a straight A-line gown right from the waist, so there was no shipping at that point. On my front bodice from the center front, I've gone ahead to mark down by nipple to nipple measurement, which is 3.5 inches. And I've connected it using my ruler and my marker, and I'm cutting shoulder points as you can see. I'm going right ahead to cut till I get to the top of the paper, but do not cut through, just allow a little point at the top. I've gone ahead to paste down my bust darts since I don't want to be using any side darts for this gown. I've gone ahead to fold my fabric over into 2, and the width you fold will be dependent on how lay you want your gown to be. Mine was about 20 to 23 inches, can't really remember, and I've marked the length of my gown. I wanted my gown to be 41 inches. I've added 1 inch for folding allowance and ½ inch for joining the shoulders, and I'm cutting it out before placing my pattern on it and cutting out. From that fold, which is now my center front, I'm going ahead to mark in 1/4 of an inch. I'm just adding width to the center front just to widen the shoulders a bit and make it more beautiful. Once I'm done with that, I've gone ahead to roll it into a straight line. I'm placing my pattern on that straight line and I'm opening it up at this point to whatever width I desire. If you are working with a larger piece of fabric, you can go ahead and mark another point and slash still on the front bodies. It's going to give more width. I've gone ahead to pin it down just to secure the pattern on my fabric before cutting it out. And I'm leaving ½ an inch from the top edge so that I'll be able to join my shoulders. I'm also adding seam allowance at the armhole area and the sides. I'm using my ruler at the side just to make sure I have a straight line. Then at the bottom, I'm making a curve. Then towards the edge, I'm drawing an H shape because that's what the style on the gown looks like. I'm going ahead to cut out the sides as well. It's important to pin, especially when you are dealing with long fabric, so they do not slip off easily. At the top part, I'm just leaving it straight because I'll be drawing in the line for the ruched yoke before cutting out my final shoulder line. I'm using my pattern to mark out the chest line, and I want the false yoke line to be on that chest line. I think it was about 7 to 8 inches, so I've gone ahead to mark it and I flipped over to the other side to repeat same. But I made sure to curve it close to the side, so I've drawn it into a slight curve. Place the pattern back on the fabric, pinned it down and cut out the right shape for this shoulder. For the curve at the side, I just went up by 1 inch and connected the line. I've taken note of the measurements of that line and it will guide me when I'm cutting out straps for the line. For the neckline, I'm using 3.5 inches by 3 inches and I've joined it together using my French curve. I'll cut it out using my scissors, and then I'm going to make a slit that is 4 inches long, but you can make it a small V. Just mark ½ an inch and cut it out, but I didn't want it to have that V shape, so I just drew it straight. It's time to cut out the back. Since I wasn't left with a lot of fabric, I used about 15 inches. That is, my fold was about 15 inches. So I've gone ahead to cut it out, and I'm going to slash and spread it just like I did for the fronts. When I'm done, I'll cut it out. The neck width I'm using for the back is 3.5 inches, while the neck depth is 1.5 inches. I'm going ahead to fold a small piece of fabric into 2 and I'm tracing it out. This will serve as the facing from my front. went ahead to iron on some stay on that facing just to give it a more beautiful look. When you're done with the ironing, just place it together, pin and sew. For the casing of the ties we have in front, I used this diagonal part of the gown I had cut out, and I'll be making straps of 1.5 width by the length that I measured earlier. So you should measure yours and use that measurement to cut it out. It's important you cut on that diagonal part so that fabric will be able to stretch a little bit at the curved part. So go ahead and cut it out. I'm going to be cutting out strips for the ties as well, and I use 1.5 inch by 30 inches. I cut 2 pieces, one for the left and for the right. I've gone ahead to cut out my lining, but I'm using it only for the back so that my underwear does not show while wearing. The length of the lining is going to be shorter than the length of the gown, so I'm going to do so and I'll cut it out. When you're done with the back, when you're done with the lining, just place it on the back and sew it together. Before adding the front to it and sewing it together, remember right side should face right side. Sew on the wrong side. After sewing the facing and the shoulders, go ahead and slit that line, notch and turn it over to the other side. I'm going to give this a good press until it straightens perfectly. I also used hemming gun to achieve this effect. By the time I was done ironing, the lines faded away, so I used my chalk to draw them out once again. Note you are going to be drawing it on the wrong side of the fabric. I'm proceeding to folding in the casing. I've confirmed my measurements. When you are measuring, you are going to add about 1 to 2 inches of seam allowance. I've started by folding it facing to 2, then I'm proceeding to fold the sides towards the center and I'll iron it down. You fold in the edge by about 1/2 inch just to seal that rough edge. Pin these 2 straps down on that line and go ahead to sew. Remember that the part that you folded will be the part that is closer to the neckline. You sew at that long part, both at the top and the bottom. Do not sew on the small sides. For the sleeves, I'm going to be having 2 puff tiers and a flip part at the edge. So for the first part, which has the crown of the sleeve, I'm going to make it 7 inches long. As you can see, I've ruled a line. The second part is about 6 inches long, and I've gone ahead to divide the sleeves into 8 equal parts. For the unfold is going to be 4 different parts. So I'm done cutting and I'm just arranging them on fold, as you can see. And since I want my sleeves to be double the width, I'm adding 1 inches across. And please, while cutting out, remember to label it so that it will be easy for you to assemble. I'm done spreading out by the 1 inch, and I'm just going to go ahead and trace it on the fabric. Just make sure to pin it so it does not shift. You can notice at this point that I've added a bit of height to the sleeve crown, and below I've gone down a bit by 1 inch. This is just to have more fullness, but it's totally optional. Do not forget to add seam allowance at the side and proceed to cutting out. For the second tier, since it's just a straight piece, I'm just going to double that measurements and cut out of my fabric. I'm cutting for both the right and left sleeve parts, that's why it's 2. I've gone ahead to cut out the bias for my neck. I folded the fabric at right angles and proceeded to cutting out. Just measure your neck first before carrying out this process. I used 1 3/4 inches. That was the width of my bias tip. At this point, I'm cutting out the flip part of my sleeve. I'm making sure that the top part is twice the width of my bicep measurements or round sleeve measurements. I'll be cutting this in 2 parts as well, one for the right and one for the left part. For the sewing of the sleeves, I'm just going to use my regular thread to gather the sleeve head, as you've seen. Then I've gone ahead to notch the center of the lower part of the sleeve and the center of that straight piece. I'll be matching them up and sew it using my elastic thread. Your elastic thread should be on the bobbin case, while the regular thread should be on top. This is what the sleeve should look like after sewing. I've gone ahead to gather the edge and I've added the flare at the lower parts using elastic thread also. When I was done with the sewing of the straps, I used my office pin to pass it through that strap case that we created earlier. I'm going to start from the center front part and pass it through. Once it gets to the side, you'll be using your pin to pin it down before sewing on your machine. Before sewing the sleeve down, measure the sleeve head to ensure that it's the same with the armhole measurement, then proceed to pinning it down, and you'll be sewing this on your sewing machine. I've gone ahead to pin and sew down my bias tape, and I'll be folding it over to sew the final stitch. The last step is folding in the hem of my dress, and my dress is ready. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. Bye.